Good morning and a warm welcome from Iskandar Putri, Malaysia. Thank you for joining us today for Iskandar Investment Berhad's inaugural Iskandar Next webinar series. Iskandar Next is all about innovations, emerging technology, talent development, and opportunities the region is poised for. Strategically located and recognized by the state of Johor as an emerging technology and digital hub, home to the Drone and Robotics Zone, or more widely known as DRZ Iskandar, and the blockchain village at Medini. Iskandar Putri is stepping into the future with Next. Embracing new technologies, driving the digital economy, curating meaningful experiences, and nurturing the talent of the future. Today, we discuss sports technology and the opportunities in Iskandar Putri. Advances in technology have had a profound impact on sport, including, but not limited to, analysis of sports performance and enabling coaches to greatly improve the quality of feedback to players and athletes, increasing accuracy in time measurements of sports performance, enabling referees, umpires, and sports officials to make better decisions on rules, infringements, and so on and so forth, improvements in the design of sports equipment and apparel, and providing spectators the experience, the viewing, and the experience of sports performance, which has never been seen before. Sport plays a critical role in the global economy. Today, we have assembled a formidable panel of experts, but more importantly, they are a passionate group of individuals that are immensely competitive both on and off the field. Okay, with the introduction and formalities out of the way, I'd like to pass the spotlight to our first panelist this morning, Mr. Zulfiqar Zainuddin. As I mentioned earlier, he's the Managing Director of IIB Ventures, a recreational cyclist, a fitness enthusiast, and a weekend footballer. Zulfiqar will take you through a session where you will understand why Iskandar Putri is synonym with emerging technology and the digital economy. Zulfiqar, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm just going to share the screen. So you guys seeing my screen?
Yes, we do.
Is that okay, Shafiq?
Yep, it looks good. Everything looks good at the moment.
I'm going to go ahead. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Once again, a very good morning. Thank you to the organizers. Thank you to my fellow panelists, and welcome to the viewers. Heartening to know that we have a good mix of people who are from sport, from technology, and people who are interested in Iskandar Putri. I think as a... Oh, my screen is not moving. Okay, so now it's moving. Okay, so I think it's heartening to know, that people are... There's also a fair bunch of people who are interested in Iskandar Putri. It would be unthinkable today to think that, when you talk about Iskandar Putri, that people are familiar, people relate to the development, and people understand that there's something going on down south in the development of Iskandar Malaysia, and specifically in the areas of Iskandar Putri. But just to give you a bit of background, we started about 15 years ago when Khazanah Nasional, the parent company of Iskandar Investment Berhad, came out with the master plan to say that we need to develop a sustainable future. And it's very unthinkable today to think that, this development has come so far in a very short time, but we still have a long journey ahead. It's another at least 10 years before we can realize what we actually want to achieve in this development. So at the end of the day, today the topic is very close to our hearts. It's all about changing lives. What we do and what we try to initiate, whether it's through the developments, through the properties, through the infrastructure and the programs that we do, if it's not for the future generation and we can't change lives, I think, it doesn't matter what we're doing today. So I guess the journey that we're going to take you through is, the experience of developing a location, what we need to do to impact the kind of feeling we want and the kind of potential that we see in Iskandar Putri, in how we've developed bridges, how we've come up with the kind of programs, the kind of developments that actually can support whatever is needed for the requirements for the location. And we do see this as something that is a long-term thing, and I'll talk you through that this morning. Just a very quick introduction of our company. we are IIB Ventures, 100% owned by Iskandar Investment Berhad, who in turn are also owned by three key entities, which is Khazanah National, the Employee Provident Fund, EPF, and also the Johor State Government through KPRJ. So we are a new entity within IIB Ventures, but we've been here for about 8 years doing the development of the ecosystem in Iskandar Putri. So I noticed there's also a fair bit of audience who are not from Johor or not from the Iskandar Putri area. So I'll just give you a quick introduction to the actual location of where we are. We are in this location that is marked B there. It's one of the 4 original nodes of Iskandar Malaysia, namely called Iskandar Putri, where one significant milestone that we've achieved at the end of 2020 is that through the developments that we've done over the last 5 years, the federal and state governments has seen the progress that has been made. Today, Iskandar Putri, through the programs that was mentioned earlier by Shafiq, namely the GBS Iskandar, Blockchain Village, and Drone and Robotics Zone that we've done over the last 8 years, the state government has recognized Medini Iskandar Malaysia as Johor's digital hub. So moving forward, we will be in the forefront of the technology and digital transformation programs for the state of Johor as well. So a quick introduction to what is the program. Iskandar Next is the latest initiative that's being done by Iskandar Investment Berhad, looking at 4 key areas: the digital economy, new businesses, experience, and talent. And where we fit in is through IIB Ventures, is that we have a new program called the Iskandar Innovation Hub. It is a combination of all of the components that we've done in the past and looking at whatever has been developed throughout the IIB group of how we can bring all of this together so that we can actually look for growth and advancement in the areas that we want to develop. So I'll talk you through what is the Iskandar Innovation Hub and what are the opportunities and how we do see the relationship of sports and technology even in what we're trying to develop. So just a quick run through of the evolution. As we mentioned earlier, if you look at pre-2013, Johor was known as a destination primarily for agriculture, for manufacturing, and to a certain degree, oil and gas, and also some of the ports that were developed back then. So we needed a shift. When we brought this idea to Khazanah to say that, if you want to look at a greenfield development such as Iskandar Putri, you have to be able to build and see what is the unique value proposition to the location. So when we looked at this, what we said was, let's look at knowledge, let's look at technology, and let's look at services. So when we started in 2013, we first started attracting shared services and outsourcing companies, which eventually then evolved into attracting global business services. So over the last 5 years, we've had over 25 companies, international and local, set up their regional and global centers in Iskandar Putri. Then we realized that we also needed to pivot. When we pivot, we said that, if we stick to the standard vanilla shared services and outsourcing, soon enough, our unique value proposition of the proximity to Singapore is going to be commoditized, and eventually there's not going to be of much value. So the journey of shifting the society, the economy, the people, the policies had started back then into saying how we can move into something that's more forward-looking and more driven by technology. So back in 2019, we looked at saying that, look, there's an initiative called IR 4.0, and we have to see what are the areas that we have to look at. So we started looking at companies and trying to understand what was the unique value proposition that we can produce for Iskandar Putri in the areas of emerging technologies. So we identified that, the proximity to Singapore has always been our USP for Iskandar Putri. But what does that make it interesting or unique for companies to consider when wanting to set up their operations here? One of the things that we looked at was when we had shared services and outsourcing and global business services, people were looking into attracting companies that would either service Singapore from Iskandar Putri or looking to defray some of the high costs of Singapore to bring them over into Iskandar Putri to lower their cost. But for emerging technologies, there was a different story that could be told. when we look at emerging technologies companies, the new unique selling point for Iskandar Putri here is the story of growth and the story of real opportunities. When we look at growth, we're saying that when we talk to blockchain companies, drone and robotic companies, IoT companies, companies that are doing blockchain, the opportunity was in Singapore for them to actually start. You have to admit that, you know, Singapore has got an excellent ecosystem for companies to start up. The funding, the universities, the support system is there for them to start in Singapore. But when we talk about growth, when companies who have grown from 5 to 50 in Singapore and want to take the opportunity to grow from 50 to 500, they're not going to be able to get 500 programmers in Singapore. They're not going to be able to make it feasible to attract 500 software engineers or 1,000 software engineers in Singapore because of the cost issues. So they looked at, let's see how we can create a nearshore location for emerging technology type of activities that we can actually support whatever is going down there in Singapore. So that's the story of how we've evolved. So today, what we've done, as I mentioned earlier, is through the Iskandar Innovation Hub, we've tried to put all of that together, our experience in putting together the building blocks of what is necessary to create a location that is feasible and interesting for not just the companies, but also the talent to come on board into Iskandar Putri. So 5 key areas that you see there, I'll explain them as we go along. The space, I think we understand today, you know, given the challenges of the pandemic over the last 18 months or so, one of the things that we said that we need to look at a different way of providing office space. When we first started, we started talking to all the developers to say that, guys, your spaces were too small. In shared services and outsourcing and GBS, people were looking for large floor plates, minimum size of 30,000 square feet. It needs to be, you know, fully accessible for all the talents and so on. But today it's a whole different ballgame, and it's continuing to be evolving. So if you look at what we're doing today, a lot of co-working space, enterprise suites, makers labs, and things like that are things that we are working on and things that you can already see in Iskandar Putri. Industry clusters, for now we are sticking to 3. GBS Iskandar, global business services companies who want to do IT, outsourcing, knowledge process outsourcing, and business process outsourcing. More than welcome, we can support what you are doing here. We have identified blockchain as one of the key emerging technologies that we can focus on. Today, we have about 6 companies who are doing blockchain activities, both from Malaysia and also from outside Malaysia. They are companies who are looking at waste management, looking at IoT, looking at also finance and things like that. And our most recent one that we launched at the end of 2020 is the DRZ Iskandar program. This is the first drone and robotics zone in Southeast Asia, which we will explain what is the value proposition that we're doing. So as I mentioned earlier, GBS Iskandar started in 2013. Today, 26 companies are there. Some 6,300 jobs have been created in the location. It is an evolution from companies who were doing IT, who were doing research, into call centers, and then eventually evolved into companies such as blockchain companies doing 3D printing. We have games developers from Japan. We also have software developers from Silicon Valley. And eventually now, if you look at the trend that we're doing, a lot of it is into emerging technologies, whether it's IoT, blockchain, and also drone and robotic companies as well. So Blockchain Village at Medini was launched about 3 years ago. It had a very modest target of saying that let's look at 1,200 jobs to be created and some 562 million worth of investment. But what is important about Blockchain Village at Medini was it represented a shift from the vanilla global business services into pivoting into emerging technologies. And one of the things that we realized was the value proposition of what we are developing here in Iskandar Putri is not that we are the technology experts, nor are we the people who are wanting to drive this development by putting together what are the things that we should govern from an industry perspective. we wanted it to be an industry-led initiative. So one of the things that we did was we got a lot of collaboration from various agencies and stakeholders, and we realized that the feedback that they provide, the input that they provide actually can drive what is needed. One example that I can share with you is when we initially started the discussions on blockchain village at Medini, one of the ideas that was being mooted by a regulator, which I won't mention who it was that we should have a national blockchain council and put together a roadmap in terms of what is needed. When we had our discussion of about 50 odd industry players, the finding was actually the opposite, where they said that actually, Zul, we don't want a national council, but we want this grouping through the blockchain village at Medini to be able to tell the government what not to do. So they told us that let the industry drive what is needed for the industry. Let the players themselves then say, don't do this, because if you do this, you will then stifle the development. You will then also see what you're doing actually is not actually supporting, but actually slowing down the progress of the development. So understanding these components, we've actually put together a series of programs in talent, infrastructure, promotion, and policy that can actually benefit companies who are looking at blockchain as a key development in Iskandar Putri. And the latest one, we've taken the same model, trying to understand what are the key components for the drone and robotics ecosystem, and trying to pair that with whatever IIB and our group of companies have actually developed over the last 15 years and find out what we can do. So today, inshallah, in July, we will launch our first drone test site of about 25 acres, and then our bigger test site of about 500 acres. It will be the first of its kind in Malaysia to have a VLOS and beyond VLOS test site. The development of the workspace, as I mentioned earlier, that's being done through our space development, co-working, enterprise, and labs, and also the other 4 components: incubation, talent, we're doing drone events, and also looking at what kind of policies. We are working closely with Magic, with NTIS as key supporters of whatever is needed for the location. So if you look at what we're doing today, it is replicating the model of saying that, look, we need to be able to be the guys who understand what are the necessary building blocks, get everybody on the same page, get the development to see what is needed, rather than trying to see us deciding what needs to be done. Of course, talent remains a very key agenda for us. Without the talent, we address talent on 3 fronts. One is the attraction of talent. You wouldn't believe that when we first started, trying to tell people that there are job opportunities in Johor, that's something that they say, it's hard to believe. Today, it's still a challenge, or at least people now know that, if you come to Johor, you come to Iskandar Putri, we do have jobs, we do have real companies who are working there. So the attraction of talent is not so much a challenge. But the 2 other challenges that we're doing is, one is the continued development of the talent. So today we've launched a program with the state government called the Johor Digital and Emerging Technology Talent Program, or JDET for short, where we're looking at upskilling and reskilling talent. This is something that we realize is very important, not just for the immediate talent, but trying to address some of the challenges that the state and the people are facing because of the pandemic. Now people aren't going back to Singapore for their jobs, so we need to find them some replacement opportunities as well. So talent development, upskilling and reskilling, very high on our agenda. And finally, I think if you look at the synergy, what we are doing with the state government, what needs to be done, what does not need to be done, these are things that we are talking about. We focus on 6 core areas: talent, tax, transportation, technology, township, and trade. These are the things that we are talking to the companies, the relevant government agencies, of how we can facilitate the companies here so that they understand what is needed and how we can address their questions, rather than them having to go round and round through the various government agencies to find out what does this mean, or what does this policy, or what am I entitled to in terms of benefits from the government. And something that we've recently introduced, while we looked at, as I mentioned earlier, talent attraction and also talent development, one of the key components we've been trying to address is talent retention. And talent retention can only be done here if we are able to create a sense of community. So over the last few years, we've had programs such as our running gang. We've hosted a lot of sports programs, a lot of social events to make sure that there's life in the location, but we're taking this up a notch. Today, we feel that, we need to be in the forefront of the development of the community, not just in the people who come and look and see what is available in Iskandar Putri, but we need to give enough mileage to those people who have made the decision to say that we want to live and we want to work in Iskandar Putri. So today we have programs that are being developed, such as the Hangout, which is a community center that is revolved around sports and lifestyle. So it's meant to be a place where we can attract the right kind of profile of people to come and work and see what is available here. And we are looking to work together with Sports Johor and a lot of other parties to see how we can organize sporting events, lifestyle events, so that the people here actually feel that this is a nice place, this is a place where we can attract the right kind of talent into Iskandar Putri. So that's it. Maybe a bit long. I'll take questions later. But I think, at the end of the day, as I mentioned earlier, what we're doing needs to be meaningful. We need to change lives. And what we're trying to build is trying to build the right kind of bridges, the right kind of development so that we can create high value employment opportunities so that the people here can actually feel that the benefits of the development of Iskandar Putri, especially moving forward into the areas of technology, is something that will benefit everyone for the longest time to come. So that's my very quick but maybe lengthy presentation. Thank you very much. I hand it over back to you, Shafiq.
Thank you, Zulfiqar, for that enlightening session. Definitely very, 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 very interesting session. Just a quick question for you, Zulfiqar. You mentioned about the community hangout that IIB is looking at commissioning. When will that be ready, roughly?
We have already put in the plans, waiting for the final approvals that are going on board by the developers and also the contractors.
So that's about Q3?
Sorry?
So quarter 2, 3, 2022?
We are looking at probably quarter 3, 2022.
Okay.
But just to note that we are not waiting for the full development to be completed before you can participate in the hangout. So by the end of the year, we are starting to launch promotional events, getting some cycling events done together with the collaboration with Sports Johor and things like that, so that people can actually get into the mood of the hangout even before it's completed. So quarter 4, when programs can actually come on board, quarter 3, 2022 is when the full completion of the facility will be ready, inshallah.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take note. That will be a quiz question later for you to win some prizes. So please take note. All right. Okay, thank you, Encik Zulfiqar, for that very enlightening session. And to our audience, if you have any questions, please type them out in the Q&A section, which can be accessed by pressing the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. And the panel will answer the questions later